very outspoken about the coronavirus, how it originated, and the role Dr. Fauci has played in terms of that $3.7 million that the NIH gave to a laboratory in Wuhan, China. Can you explain to our viewers how all of this is connected?
In 2014, the U.S. government passed a moratorium on chimeric research, preventing the manipulation of pathogens that had a potential for a pandemic, as brought to the attention of the government by certain virologists who were very against the chimeric adulteration of natural pathogens, bacteria, viruses, whatever the case may be. Dr. Fauci, being in his position, having a directorship at the National Institute of Health, was in a position of being able to obviously know about this moratorium, but bypassed the moratorium the following year after it was passed, and then funded $3.7 million to this lab in Wuhan. Now, the extent of the information that I had was really up to that point. What apparently now there seems to be is that this extension of money was at the behest of the President of the United States at that time, President Obama. Now, I don't have any firsthand knowledge of this. I only am going by what apparently the hacks that were, the hacking of the World Health Organization, the CDC, the Bill Gates Foundation, what those documents seem to have shown. I have not seen those myself. That's what I have heard. But I am only aware of Dr. Fauci funding, releasing against the U.S. government moratorium in 2014 and releasing that money to a foreign country. And in actuality, that to me is an act of treason.
Okay, so Dr. Fauci has been at the forefront of this coronavirus outbreak in terms of being on the coronavirus task force team. Him and Birx, the experts came out with these models. If you remember, if we can pull the bell curve up on the screen, it was the top of the bell curve was 2.2 million people predicted to die from the outbreak if nothing was done, right? And then in best case scenario, they predicted 100,000 people would die, and this was on total lockdown, social distancing. At last checked, 57,000 deaths have been attributed to coronavirus. So not nearly those numbers, but those models have changed a number of times. The predictions have constantly changed. And now these death count numbers are coming under heavy scrutiny, especially because doctors across the nation have come forward and they're starting to reveal that they're being pressured to classify all deaths as coronavirus deaths, even if the person didn't die from coronavirus. I want you to listen to just a few sound bites of doctors talking about this and one health department director. And again, this is just a few of many. Take a listen.
When I'm writing up my death report, I'm being pressured to add COVID. Why is that? Why are we being pressured to add COVID to maybe increase the numbers and make it look a little bit worse than it is? I think so.
If you were in hospice and had already been given, a few weeks to live, and then you also were found to have COVID, that would be counted as a COVID death. It means that even if you died of a clear alternate cause, but you had COVID at the same time, it's still listed as a COVID death.
I received an email last week from the Department of Health coaching me on how to fill out death certificates. They were saying, you don't have to have a confirmed laboratory test for COVID-19 in order to make the death certificate be COVID-19.
What are your thoughts on this, Dr. Buttar? Are the death count cases, the numbers being inflated? Are these accurate death counts?
The death counts that have been reported about COVID-19 from the get-go were fraudulent. I had said that publicly. I think that's the reason that these videos that we put out got so much traction. YouTube started censoring my videos. When they hit 1 million views within 24 to 48 hours, they censored those videos, Facebook and YouTube. And basically, I exposed these numbers. We were talking about these numbers. Right now, as of 36 hours ago, I had a call with a friend of mine who said that his friend's son, 17-year-old, committed suicide. And they ruled his suicide as COVID-19. And that may sound ridiculous, but it's become a meme now. You fall out of a plane without a parachute, cause of death, COVID-19. You get shot in the head, cause of death, COVID-19. They cannot inflate the numbers enough to come even close to justifying why they've done this. So the numbers themselves didn't show it. Then they start inflating the numbers, and they still, with inflation, they can't show those numbers.
Okay, so we talk about the death rates, but now let's talk about what they're doing, the plan, the lockdowns, the social distancing. We've heard so much about it. This is how we, what do they call, flatten the curve. This is how we keep people safe. But people are starting to notice. People are starting to question. I'm getting emails from people who are saying, well, this isn't making sense, Christina, because we're allowed to go into these crowded grocery stores and liquor stores and shop, but yet we're not allowed to go outside to a park or a beach. I mean, for goodness sakes, we just saw somebody get arrested for surfing on the ocean. How well do you think the social distancing, the 6 feet of separation actually works, and why are outdoor activities being restricted?
Outdoor activities are being restricted because they don't want people to see the truth. And as far as the social distancing, anybody, any scientist or doctor that says social distancing, what they're talking about is productive to prevent coronavirus, is either never graduated from medical school and doesn't have a PhD, is an illiterate, he's ignorant, or they are completely 100% fraudulent. They have already sold their soul out. They have no integrity, scientific or medical integrity whatsoever. There are only 3 things, Christina, that will spread through the air the way that they're trying to project: Ebola, tuberculosis, and smallpox. Everything else is particulate nature. So any type of coronavirus, any type of cold, anything that a person can catch, no matter what you say it is actually particulate. You sneeze, it's saliva, it's sputum, it's something that travels in the air and lands, has a viral load on it. It lands on an item, on an object, and then somebody comes along, touches that object, and then they pick up a piece of food or they put their hand in the mouth, and that's how it's transmitted. Mm-hmm. It's transmitted through direct contact. To say that social distancing is working is the biggest absurdity.
So let's talk mainstream media. They have been laser focused on attacking President Donald Trump and blaming President Donald Trump for the coronavirus. I mean, you see them. This is the same mainstream media that are showing videos of hospitals that are completely overwhelmed, and then come to find out these are hospitals in Italy. In the meantime, we have viewers sending us videos that are showing hospitals across the nation that look like virtual ghost towns because this big overwhelming population of coronavirus patients never arrived at those hospitals. What role do you think the mainstream media has played in all of this?
Earlier today, I was a witness in the International Tribunal Against Injustice, and this hopefully will be brought to The Hague as a war crime or as a crime against humanity. And they asked me the same question. Mainstream media, as far as I'm concerned, they're not complicit with this. They are the causative agent for this, and that they should be held accountable. And I'm not talking about financially responsible. I'm talking about criminally responsible, with not only the companies themselves, but the corporate heads and even the stockholders being held criminally responsible for the number of deaths that have occurred. And these deaths that I'm talking about, I'm not talking about the so-called COVID-19 elevated deaths or the numbers that have been inflated. I'm talking about the actual deaths that have been caused because of this mayhem. The number of child abuse cases that have skyrocketed since people have been restricted at home. The amount of depression that's resulted in suicides because people are scared and they're depressed. The amount of spousal abuse that's occurred. Mm-hmm. The number of people that have not gone to hospitals now because they're afraid of taxing an overtaxed hospital system, which is absolutely fraudulent. By the number of people that have not gone to the hospitals because they're scared that they're going to catch this imaginary COVID-19. Now, when I say imaginary COVID-19, there is a COVID-19, but what I'm talking about, the fear that has been propagated by the media, that's imaginary. There is no such thing as this virus that leaps 6 feet first, now 13 feet, and happens to be very, very intelligent and starts at Wuhan, jumps over Beijing and Shanghai and causes no problem, and then jumps into New York.
Final questions for you. Number one is, what is the solution? What's the solution here? Coronavirus outbreak to all of this. What's the solution?
The solution is exactly what President Trump said, which is that we should have gone back to work by Easter. The problem that President Trump has right now is that he's surrounded by either liars or morons. Either way, you can't excuse this. And I don't think either one of these people are morons, so they have to be liars. They're creating an agenda to try to take down the economy. They're trying to hurt the entire world economy. But what's more sinister is their overall agenda. Their overall agenda isn't assassinating the economy. It's mandatory vaccines. It's mandatory vaccines with the rollout of some technology that is now, we're finding, causing an exacerbation of this issue. And that technology, every time I say this word, it gets censored. So can I say it, or am I being censored here?
You know what? I wouldn't say it because I've seen it. I've seen it being bleeped out. I've seen videos pulled down. So I wouldn't say the word.
But the bottom line is
it's a number and it's a letter, right?
That's right. It's a number and it's a letter. And people have said, well, Dr. Buttar, that doesn't make any sense. How can that cause this? It's not causing it. It's exacerbating it. It's not the spark that's causing the fire. It's the fuel that's being poured on the spark that's causing the fire. And that's the reason we're being kept home, so that we cannot see the rollout of this technology. And it goes more and more deeper than this, Christina, which we probably don't have time for. But my question is very simple to people. If this is a problem, why is it being censored? There are 5 videos that we've put together. The 6th one's going to be released tomorrow. All the stuff that you just showed has already been shown in those videos. My question is, if you're living in the United States, then why is this information being censored? That's the question people should be asked.
Absolutely. And when people get censored or suspended, they might be telling the truth, and it makes people scared.